I totally understand you if you feel relieved that your child's going back to school. Finally, you got some peace, right? But it's actually not a good sign. It's a warning sign that you're running from something. Now, whether you're worried about school, you're considering homeschooling, or absolutely not, I want to tell you how I did this. Why I pulled my son out from special needs education, all that stuff for a whole year. And how I got him from no learning and no comprehension to understanding, learning, going back into mainstream, only 1 year behind his peers, and ending up passing exams, getting his grades, learning a new language, being able to understand math at the level of his peers. Totally incredible. You need to know about this. And I did this without ABA, I did it without speech therapy, and I did it without homework. So it's pretty interesting. And the reason why this is important for you is that you gotta understand that the brain, which is what we're focusing on in the school system, is a brain that actually lives in a body. And so learning and developing skills and comprehension and writing and being able to read social cues and avoid bullying, that is something that requires a brain that is optimized for learning and a body that's optimized for learning. The brain develops through movement, specific movements actually. Develops skills like I just mentioned, but also the ability to focus and sit still. And nutrition is what really helps your child optimize learning, specifically with autism and ADHD, where methylation is an issue. And methylation affects neurotransmitters, it affects enzymes and hormones and detoxification, but particularly with the neurotransmitters, you need to be able to relax and focus when you need to do that. And you need to be active and excited and move around when you need that. So the excitatories versus the calming neurotransmitters need to be balanced. And nutritionally, if you haven't adjusted methylation, that won't happen. Do you know any schools that focus on this? Do you know any special needs interventions, or even people who diagnose children with either dyslexia or ADHD or autism, who focus on methylation, who focus on how to strengthen the brain's development through physical exercises? Because these are not new findings. It has been known in neuroscience for many years that there are specific exercises that stimulate these skills. But the body also needs to be optimized for learning by sunlight. Circadian rhythm needs to be respected. Here's another crucial piece of information for you that I had to realize the hard way. If I'm not enjoying my life, my mundane, everyday, boring life with my children and my family, it's a sign that some forces within me and some spiritual forces and forces of society is destroying my family and distracting me from what I'm supposed to be enjoying. Now, getting up in the morning, making breakfast, nourishing our children, taking them into nature, teaching them about life and values, developing their eye tracking skills and visual processing skills and auditory processing skills in nature by looking at animals, birds, hiking, hunting, gathering, fishing, whatever we were designed to do. Making a fire, talking about the day, pray, reading the Bible, cooking dinner, maybe taking care of animals, being close to each other, being present, being loving, having peace and calm in my nervous system. That is my finest job. That is my purpose. Keeping my house nourishing and peaceful and developing for my child's spiritual development, cognitive development, emotional development. That is what I'm here to do. And we're so busy getting that over and done with, or getting that handed over to other people, because that is honestly Satan's scheme, is to destroy families. It is to tear families apart. It is to create distance between children and parents. It is to remove children from the values of God, joy, peace, innocence, the rules for life, kindness, modesty. We cannot allow the majority of our children's day and the majority of our children's soul and brain to be filled with the doctrines and the deprivations of this world. I'm not saying this to become some sort of just crazy person in the woods, but I'm saying that the way that things are running, the things that people watch on screens, kids are introduced to on their phones, on their screens, which are perverse and destructive and causing anxiety and depression. We need to protect our children from that, and we need to protect ourselves from thinking that when we feel that it's a strain to be in our family because there are a lot of symptoms, and we need to get away from it, or we need someone else to deal with it, instead of creating that peace with God. That is God's plan for us. We are off track. Minor detail: children spend the majority of their day with shoes on, meaning they cannot connect to the ground, they cannot dump free static electricity, and they don't get exposed to sunlight and daylight and movement that actually regulates their sleep. So their quality of sleep, their quality of life, the quality of information that goes into this tiny body is low in the system. They came to question the system. We're putting them into the system. They came to question us and our parenting and our choices and our lifestyle and the artificial indoor lifestyle matrix elements that we have let into our homes. And then we try to get rid of them and the message and the symptoms instead of changing our lives. Get the life that you're longing for, with more peace, more nature, more sleep, more independence for you and your child, is within your reach if you stop trying to fit into that system. Brain development is developed in the environment. I'm not just talking about the physical environment. I'm also talking about the spiritual, emotional environment. The nervous system, is it dysregulated? Is it stressed? Is it in fight and flight? Because you cannot learn in that condition. I want to say that many of our children, because they are dealing with inflammation, gut dysbiosis, mitochondrial dysfunction, nervous system dysregulation, nutrient deficiencies and nutrient overload, they also have inflammation in the brain. And it's like sending someone to school who is, in fact, has a stomach flu, a virus bug, the flu, and a headache or a hangover. It feels like that to the child. So you don't send someone who's in an urgent crisis into a situation where they're expected to focus and expected to learn. So in many cases, learning is impaired in schools. By the way, can I just say this? These children came into this world to change the system, to question the systems, to question the mainstream, to question the passive, regurgitative learning environments and the doctrines and ideologies that the mainstream schools are built upon, creating people to go out and do certain jobs in the industry or academia. It's not designed for disruptors. It's not designed for creatives. And these children are actually here to break down these structures that we're then asking them to fit into. It's like these two things do not go together. And we need to understand that as mothers and fathers, that they are actually here to change the world, and their symptoms are flagging up what the freak is wrong with this system, with the diagnosis, with the learning process, with the environment in which we try to let people learn, but also with this whole thing about handing our children over to other people and letting them fit into the matrix, the system, the ideologies that are falling apart right before our eyes. And that's why it feels so painful for many mothers to send their children to school. So the environment needs to be optimized for learning as well. I'm talking about EMF in schools, not great for learning. I'm also talking about the emotional environment in schools that needs to be in place for a child to be safe enough in their nervous system to be able to take in information. So if we're completely honest, most schools, I'm not saying your child's school is like this, but we learn best outdoors, and most schools are the exact opposite of what would optimize for learning, would allow the brain that lives in a body, lives in an environment, to actually develop skills and comprehension and focus and concentration and actually happiness. So the opposite of an optimized environment is screens indoor. So for instead of movement, we have screens. We have children sitting passively down on a chair for long periods of time, even though we know that physical movement outside is what really increases learning and results. Nutrition in schools, is it really tailored to that child's individual needs? Is it full of good fats, great food for the microbiome, which will then affect the brain? Is it full of fiber? Is it full of protein to adjust methylation? Is it low sugar so that it balances the blood sugar? Because a blood sugar that is out of place cannot support learning in a child. It will create more symptoms, more aggression, more eloping, less focus, and then we'll teach the child, oh, something's wrong with you. You've got ADD or ADHD. No, actually, I'm malnourished and my brain is not developed right. So nutrition, the movement, there's no movement. We're sitting inside. We are not exposed to sunlight. We are in an environment of fluorescent light, school lunches that are mainly processed foods. And if it's not processed foods, it is not gluten-free, it is not full of fiber, it is not nutritious often. And if it is, then it's an environment where the chance that your child will eat burgers and junk food, which will impair learning, is high when they're in that environment outside of the home where there's home cooked meal from scratch, hopefully. So they're sitting indoors under fluorescent light, not exposed to sunlight, and in an environment of EMF, noise pollution, which creates mini concussions, impairs learning. The risk of abuse, the risk of bullying, and the risk of indoctrination to values that are so far from your values is high. So if you're relieved that your child is going into this system and you're worried about how to support your child's learning when you feel like you've got limited resources emotionally and practically and physically, I just want to invite you to consider this. If we have been with our family during summer and we feel like it's a relief to get rid of our family after summer and sending our children to school, my question is this: are you still running? Are you still trying to deny something? Are you still running because tantrums and eloping and having to monitor your child all throughout summer has been an issue for you? You've been maybe arguing with your child over food, and you've had no sleep, you've had no time for yourself. And I understand that because I was in that situation as well. But when I say, are you still running? It's because those symptoms are actually here to change your situation, to tell you what needs to change so that these symptoms can change. And the number one message behind symptoms like that is the wake-up call from God, the plan from God, There's a plan, there's a wake-up call for you in all of these symptoms. There's a message for you about what needs to change. And it always reveals something about where we are out of integrity in our walk with our children, in our walk with self, in our walk with others, and in our walk with God. Something that needs to change, that's what these symptoms are flagging up in our mindset, in listening to and obeying the messages that are calling us to change something, in nature deficiency that needs to be fixed. We can't heal indoors. Something in our emotional and physical healing needed, since we are so detached from what it is that these symptoms mean and so overwhelmed about how to help our children that we need to delegate it to somebody else. So in fact, the more tantrums and symptoms and problems that you have, the more it's an invitation for you to heal yourself, because you can only understand symptoms, change your child, help your child learn to the level that you have changed, understood, and helped yourself. I cannot emphasize this enough. Self-sabotage patterns and stress in your nervous system will always make you maintain a dysfunctional familiar situation, no matter how crappy the situation is. The brain hates change when it is in fight and flight. So subconsciously you work against your child's turnaround process and recovery, because this is your familiar situation. This is your dysfunctional familiar. And it's because the brain thinks you're still in a jungle and there's a lion chasing you, because it's so overwhelming to be you. You're literally in a war zone. But it doesn't make you prone to make wise decisions. So something needs to change there. You need to change the environment that got your child to have these symptoms, where learning is not easy and being in a family with you is not easy. And then finally, there's something in the nutrition that is not tailored to your child's bio-individual needs. I hate to say this, and sometimes I'd say I love to say this, these symptoms will return again and again and again until you learn to listen to them and change your life, your parenting, your choices, your values, the way that you live your life, the choices that you make according to the message that you get. That was a bit complicated. But just to say that it's like these symptoms are here to say, hello, mama, something needs to change, is what I always say. And until you learn to listen and change, you'll have symptoms. They'll come back and they'll return and they'll get worse. Another question you need to ask yourself, make sure that your child is actually ready for this, to be in school. Is your child in a state where the system is broken down? The mitochondria, the gut health, the brain, the neurotransmitters, the nervous system, food, lifestyle. If your child has a systematic breakdown, you don't send your child to school. Is it the right time to make this decision for you, or is it time to make a decision to do home education-based schooling instead? I'll tell you what I did. It's very easy and a very short explanation. Are you trying to make a short-term solution again for a long-term goal that you have, which actually will work against your long-term goal? Because I certainly saw that a child that is in a systematic autistic or ADHD meltdown physically and emotionally and spiritually and practically cannot be in a school, a mainstream school. They cannot be expected to learn. They cannot focus, they cannot concentrate, they cannot make friends, and it's a recipe for disaster. If you want to send your child to school, make sure that they share your values, that they have the same intention for the future of your child, and that the decision you're making right now supports the intention you have for your child. Because my intention was my child needs to be independent in the future. He needs to be able to live his life independently, drive a car, have a job, those things. If that's my goal, I can't put that extra stress on him in a phase of his life where all he needs is peace and healing and nutrition and restoration. So just understand that if your child is not developed, supported, and your child's needs are met, you're giving something in return for that respite that you're getting by sending your child back into school. So is it the right time? That's something you need to ask yourself. Now, for what I did. I understood that the one thing that my child needed was healing. You cannot learn as you're healing. You don't send somebody straight from an accident or a war zone into a school setting. And I wanted to focus 1 year of complete healing, brain development, and my own approach. And this is exactly what I did. I did no homework in that year. No ABA, no speech therapy, no nothing, no vision therapy, no, we didn't do any homework in that year. What we did is, and that's actually how I developed the program, the curriculum that I'm now teaching the moms inside the Autism Turnaround group coaching program. But we did all the things within the 5 pillars of turning autism symptoms or any symptom around. Mindset changes and the wake-up call, understanding what God wants us to change here. Nervous system development, nature therapy, so nature deficiency. We dealt with that in a very specific way, addressing circadian rhythm and timing. We moved away from the city as well. We did specific movements for the brain, so physical and emotional healing for me and my child and my family. Because guess what? When you want to go back to school and back to life because you can't stand being around your family, it's because you need physical and emotional healing, because you're running from your trauma, you're running from pain, you're running from who you have become, what your family has turned into based on the decisions that you have made and haven't made in your life. And so we did that. I did a lot of intensive physical and emotional healing, nutritional healing as well. We spent most of our time outdoors and specific healing to relieve stress, balance the nervous system, and develop the brain, the part of the brain that is responsible for learning and social skills and bonding, retention, and focus. And we focused then gradually on bio-individual nutrition as well. And within a year, he was able to go back into mainstream 1 year behind his peers without having done 1 page of homework with limited support. I don't even think he had support at that point. There was like a psychologist that talked to us every once in a while and monitored him, but that was it. He learned math. He learned to pass exams. He went to a high school where he lived independently for a year when we were in England, and then he came to us, learned English, went into college, passed exams, took his driver's license, and he continued to develop skills from then on. This is why I say, as a mother, you have access to designing and tailoring the approach for your child, no matter what symptoms are bothering you. That's what I'm an expert in helping you with. I'm not an expert who will tell you what to do. I'm an expert in reminding you of what God's plan is for you and how you can tailor the approach to deal with your child's triggers and adjust your intervention, your nutrition, your diet, and what you want to do for your child at any given time. You'll be able to read your child and adjust diet and nutrition and approaches accordingly. You need to become an expert in doing that for yourself first. And that's why, because I've been working with moms for 20 years now, 10,000s of moms, that's what I'm good at. I know when you run away from yourself, which is what was the theme for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe to this video and give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody. Send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, so that we can connect and talk about your child maybe. Share this video on your socials and tag me in it. I love to connect, and you can also connect with me on Instagram if you want. Until next time, take care, stay alert. I have a little outro message here for you. If you've been listening to this episode and you're thinking, well, why did she put her child into mainstream schooling if she doesn't subscribe to the mainstream system and ideology. And I regret doing that. For me, it was all about getting him into society, and I believe it was a bit too early. He came out really well, as you can see, if you're following my story: independent driving, job, neurotypical life. But I came out of New Age spirituality 4 years ago, way past the time where he was turned around and he no longer had these symptoms. So I have still been developing all through this process with my child, and I want to invite you to allow yourself to do that too. You're not going to be the same person after the turnaround, and even 10 years from now, as a person that's sitting right here today watching this video. Just know that every single hour, week and month counts when it comes to optimizing learning and understanding what the freak is going on here and adjusting according to God's plan. Until next time.